he is proving to be much more receptive to the use of military force abroad, he's also, in a sense, forcing the Europeans to step up to the plate, isn't he? By demanding that they pay for a portion of these arms that go to Ukraine?
Absolutely. And that's President Trump's big foreign policy success in this administration. At the NATO summit, he got the NATO members to agree to a 5% commitment of its GDP, and no one's been able to do that. And we saw yesterday at the White House, Rutte recognized that. And Europe is awake, and they're finally starting to spend much more on their defense, and they're starting to take their own defense seriously.
But it was also striking that Trump praised NATO yesterday precisely for its support of Ukraine. So he is breaking with a good chunk of the America First orthodoxy, isn't he?
The American First orthodoxy is mad as hell, I think is the technical term. They're condemning him and saying, we didn't vote for this. So there are splits, and he's going to have to be very careful about managing those splits. Now he's saying, you guys are not paying anything. The U.S. taxpayer is not footing this bill for $10 billion. The Europeans are paying for it, and he's going to continue to justify it that way. He also repeated yesterday incorrect figures about how much the U.S. has given to Ukraine. The real figure is $182 billion. He often says it's 300 or 350 billion. That figure is false.
So has President Zelensky managed miraculously to forge a good relationship with Trump? Today it was reported both in the American and European press that he asked Zelensky why he wasn't hitting Moscow. And Zelensky said, well, if you give us the weapons, we will.
So the Financial Times reported that Trump asked Zelensky, can you hit St. Petersburg and Moscow if I give you long-range missiles? And he said yes. So it was sort of a tacit encouragement to do so. But so I wouldn't make too much out of that. What I make out of that is Trump is furious at Putin. He's furious that he's lost face. That's what I see from that comment.
So Putin overdid it.
He overdid it, but I also am worried about the irresponsibility. Like, we don't want a world war here. We do not have a strong foreign policy team at the White House now. So that's an area I'm going to be watching pretty closely.
So you think they could actually overdo it here in the U.S.?
I don't. It's something that I think most people should be watching right now. I think, though, let's go back to Ukraine for a minute. There hasn't been a lot of progress on the Russian side in the last year. And there's a new paper by Andrew Zagorniuk that Carnegie just published. And he talks about Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, one of the most prestigious think tanks. And the paper basically says that we need to move from a war of attrition, which is the way that we think about the war now, and move the policy and deny Russia the advantage in air, land, sea, and information. I think it's a really smart paper, and he says that the Ukrainians have done a very good job of setting up a no kill zone along the front line, so that the Russians can't use these tactics. Remember when during Bakhmut that they were sending the wave after wave
motorcycles, whatever it took, they sent in.
So there's so much pressure and so many eyeballs on the front line now, and the Ukrainians have done a really good job with drones. You'll see, Jacob, pictures along the front of nets that are preventing drones from going through. The Ukrainians have done a very good job of frustrating the Russians, particularly in the Black Sea. They didn't even have a navy, and they've managed to push them far back and resume commercial shipping.
So right now, this vaunted Russian summer offensive, is it proving to be one, or is it just making marginal gains?
The Russians have not been able to move. They have not taken a significant amount of territory in the last year. And so the argument of this paper, and I think this paper is excellent, and I really encourage people to read it, he's talking about strategic neutrality. So neutralizing the advantages. Russia has more people. It has a bigger economy. But how do you smartly neutralize those advantages so that Russia is... Russia still has an army, but they can't do anything. They can't accomplish anything. And then you start to have these discussions about why are we spending all this money, time, and treasure if we can't take Ukraine?
So is the aim of this paper to force Russia to the table?
Sorry, we need to retake that. I just said the wrong term. The argument of this paper is strategic neutralization. Ukraine wants to neutralize the advantage that Russia has. It has more manpower, it has more money, and it can do that through the use of technology and small pivots. So it's used Russian drones, Russian sea drones, to neutralize the Russian Black Sea Fleet.
So what is the aim of Zagornuk's paper? Is it to defeat Russia, to neutralize it, as you say? Is that simply to force it into real peace negotiations?
No, so he's saying, imagine a world where there's not going to be an armistice. There's not going to be a formal sitting down and hammering out deals. He thinks the war is going to continue indefinitely, and each side is going to have to continue to experiment. And the question, so in a war of attrition, that's going to favor an adversary that has a larger budget and more soldiers. So Ukraine has fewer soldiers, less money, and it needs to find smart ways to neutralize Ukraine's advantage or to neutralize Russia's advantage. And Russia is learning. It has started to increase its drone supplies, and it's learning on the front as well.
I guess there are two plausible theories. One is that that kind of a war would lead to Putin being toppled because he would never be able to show victory. Or the other would be that he sort of likes a war environment because it allows him to maintain an authoritarian grip on Russian society. Do you have any views on that?
I think I don't think Putin has any other choice. So the social contract today, the war is part of the social contract. People have bought into this. There's no alternative to Putin until he leaves this earth. So I think he has bet the house on the war, and there's no plausible way to get out of it. There's no theory of victory that's going to satisfy the Russian people.
Neutralization would work to Ukraine's advantage in the sense that it could begin perhaps to focus more on reviving its domestic economy. There's great entrepreneurial spirit there. Do you see that happening?
So the idea is that in spite of the war is going to continue, but Ukraine is a sovereign, independent nation. It can start rebuilding, and it can carry on with everything that it's doing. And I was just in Ivano-Frankivsk, which is this small town, 200,000 people, and they've rehabilitated an old Soviet gas factory, and it has tons of businesses. They're starting a new economic center, and it's going to have an R&D facility to help young entrepreneurs start new businesses. They have a small business that makes leather out of mushrooms. So they're very experimental. They figured out how to make inexpensive housing for internally displaced people. There's a lot of experimentation because costs are so low in Ukraine, particularly employment costs, and there are not enough jobs. So I think that there's going to be enormous experimentation as soon as Ukraine has some security.
Yeah, I mean, my sense from talking to you and other people is that there is immense entrepreneurial activity and spirit in Ukraine that could become unleashed, and that you would need significant foreign investment, but that it would be an auspicious place to invest in.
But it all depends on security. So we just had the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome, and Ukraine signed more MOUs, and I think it's like there was real business happening, and there's real hopes for Ukraine's recovery, which is fabulous. But if you talk to any entrepreneur, any Ukrainian, the number one barrier to getting people to come back, to getting foreign investors, is security. And air defense is a big piece of it. So let's go back to where we started. The deal that was hammered out in the White House yesterday is a huge step forward for Ukraine's recovery and for getting 5 million Ukrainians to return to their country.
Final question. Do you believe that Donald Trump, like Joe Biden, will travel to Ukraine to visit Zelensky?
No.
No.
No. Why would he?
Because he likes the dramatic act.
But so Donald Trump has not had a change of heart. He does not like President Zelensky. He doesn't like the Ukrainian people, but he feels for people's suffering, and he wants the Nobel Prize. He hasn't had some great conversion experience.
I didn't say it was conversion. I just wonder if it would appeal to his sense of the theatrical to travel there.
I don't think Donald Trump takes personal risks. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, Melinda, thank you for all your efforts, and thank you for coming here today.
Thank you.